Welcome to our Boldly Going Nowhere Dharma talk. Again this week being given on my patio. And I don't know if I can say it, but we are safe sheltering and also sell seashells. Anyway, I have a little trouble with that, but we're here and I think we're introducing ourselves. I'm Ruthie. I'm a Buddhist layperson. I took up the study of the Dharma in 1953, which is quite a while ago, as a freshman in college. And so 5 years ago, a friend asked if we would start a Dharma talk group, and we did, and it's been very, very rewarding for everybody. Um, Now, with all the restrictions and regulations because of the pandemic, we have moved to a very small group and we've gone to videotaping. So now I'm going to pass you to Mark, and Mark is going to be our meditation guide today.
Hello, my name is Mark Daniel. I'll take the mask off so you can hear me, and then I'll put it back on again.
I guess I should.
No, you were fine. I could hear you.
Okay, all right.
Essentially, I consider myself a guide that walks in many, many different disciplines. I have the good fortune to be welcomed into I'm Canadian, so we call our natives First Nation. I'm welcome to many First Nation communities and partake in their spiritual practices on a regular basis and act as a firekeeper on their behalf. I fortunately, I'm involved in so many different teachings that I wake every day with the possibility of absolute amazement. And that's essentially what I do and how I share, and then I support others in that vision. And now I'd like to pass you to Jeff, who is the co-person.
Hello, I'm Jeff Olson, and I have a background in counseling and a master's degree in marriage and family therapy. But I've been practicing and understanding the Dharma and Buddhist practices for the last 4 years.
Me too. I'm Lisa Virtue in Silhouette here. I am a channeler and an energy healer and yoga practitioner. Today I'm just joining in as an audience, but I think in the future I may lead a pre-ritual, either movement or meditation.
Okay.
And I'm Suzanne Thomas, and I'm a practitioner of the Dharma since 5 years ago when we started doing these talks. And I've really enjoyed participating and adding this to my life.
Suzanne is quite a social activist, and there's a lot of good social activism in Buddhism. Among other things, she flew all the way to Washington back for the Million Woman March. And then she formed one that marched right here in our little town on the southwest coast, Pacific coast of Costa Rica. So that's how small our group is. We have room for a few more because we've got enough room spread out where everybody can be safe distanced. And so here we are, and now I wish to turn this over to Mark for our opening meditation.
So as we step into our meditation, I'm going to invite you just to settle into your breath, and whatever that looks like for you, however it feels. Notice the inhalation as it comes in. Is it interrupted? Is it short? Is it long? And just aware of that experience. And as you exhale, this is just softly exhale. Find that your breath instantly transitions from inhalation to exhalation, exhalation to inhalation, or is it an abrupt stop and redirect? And again, it's just an observation. You're just noticing. And as that breath goes deeper, things like background noise, whether it be a vehicle or whether it be cicadas or birds, or squirrels, it's just part of the symphony of the day. And you're allowing your breath now to blend into that symphony. Not the conductor or the recipient, the observer. As your breath settles and becomes more relaxed, you may find that you become aware of self. And just breathe into that for a moment. This breath that is coming in, this inspiration, to inspire, to breathe in, is an experience that you are having personally. You may do this some 20,000 times today. How many times are you actually aware of it? So this moment, aware of self. And as your body feels this restoration, this prana, this life force energy being inhaled, and your body transmutes all of the support and aspects of your body, you may find that a relaxed sense begins. The breath deepens, elongates, transitions effortlessly. In so doing, you become aware that not only are you in this experience, now you are part of the experience that is around you. In essence, you are the master of the experience around you, how you feel about it, how you see it. Notice how that may shift or change your breath, or where it remains the same. Perhaps the sounds outside become more symphonic, predictable. You begin to find more peace. And as you find that more peace, perhaps you hear more birds. Perhaps you hear the wind through the leaves. In this process, you are now settling into the change, the difference. Where you may have been victim to your environment, you're now becoming master of that environment. You're aware of self, your relationship with your outside world. And now you are seeing that there is a change that is possible, how you respond and react to the outside world. Noticing your breath. Noticing any tensions in the body. If you're finding or feeling or sensing a sense of release or relief, this is going to encourage you, to inspire you to do this more often. You become motivated to be part of a practice, a daily practice, or even an hourly practice if it falls, where you're able to remember who you are in relationship to the world that's around you, how you feel about it, and where you're the passionate observer. Allowing that breath to deepen and broaden. Releasing any tensions in the body because it just happens naturally. Like holding and gripping something in your hand and just relaxing, and whatever it was falls out. drops away. It's a choice. You may have found that in your home, where you are as you watch this, as you've relaxed more, the space around you has relaxed as well. This is our relationship, who we are, and the world around us, and how we choose daily, how we will relate. I invite you now to take a very big, deep breath, breathing in through the nose. And as it reaches the apex, just allow it to effortlessly flow out. We'll do this 4 times, so breathing in and exhaling. 2 more times, breathing in and exhaling. 4th time. And exhaling. For a few moments, settling with your breath, observing. Are you taking in air or receiving? Are you forcing out and discarding or releasing? Just observe your breath. Now as you prepare to come back to the thinking mind, I encourage you to be the observer as Ruthie and Jeff share insight and exploration. You may be relaxed because it's your choice. You may find peace because it's your choice. And prepare to open your eyes slowly, soft gaze forward. And as your eyes open fully, just aware of what you focus on.
Help if we have any challenge.
We will next time.
Well, we've had them before, we forgot them today. So we'll just have to, I'll tell you what, we could get a public. Would you like me to do that?
We're good.
Sure. Everybody just say ding.
Well, welcome everyone. We are going to do some things connected with Dharma today. And I've prepared something and we'll see where this goes. I always try to leave some opening for the inspiration of the moment. I'm going to take this off so you can hear me better. Before we go into the topic today, which is the second of the Eightfold Path, which is right intention, right thoughts. I always feel like it's important to review how you get to this point in the Buddhist thinking. In the first talk that he gave after his enlightenment 2,500 years ago, Buddha talked about the Four Noble Truths. The first noble truth is that life involves suffering. Dis-ease. Things don't go according to our plan. The second noble truth tied to that is that there's a cause of this. And the cause of it is that we cling, grasp, try to retain things that have long since found their roots dissipated. Clinging, grasping, retaining, craving. And so the symptom, the behavior are those that lead us to suffering. The third is that there's a way out of this suffering. And that is to release, to let go. And then the fourth noble truth is the Eightfold Path, of which we're going to do the second part of the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path, I'm new enough to have to read it. Right understanding is the first on the path. Right thoughts or intention is where we're going today. Right speech we handled about a month ago. Right action, we included quite a bit of this, and we'll do more about action and karma. Right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right meditation. And so one of the goals of Buddhism, which is a word that is not always taught so much in other spiritual practices, is happiness. That the goal of the release of suffering is that you can be happy, you can be content, you can be in the flow of life as it is. And so these eight pieces of the Eightfold Path, of which the first two are really are about wisdom. Wisdom teachings, right understanding, and right thoughts or right intentions. So as you listen today, I'd like you to think about how you think, where your intentions go with your thoughts, and I think that there might be some helpful things if there's suffering involved in your thinking. This is a really good topic for psychology. There's a term in counseling that is changing your mind, and it's called reframing. Same picture, different frame, your choice. Sometimes we get stuck in the picture. Sometimes we're too close to the picture to release ourselves and observe it, as Mark was talking about earlier. And yet, if the goal is happiness, then we have to figure out a different way to view and operate with the suffering that's inevitable. in our lives. Interestingly, Buddhism, like a lot of religions, of which it's much more philosophy and a lifestyle, but starts with the bad news. And we wish that there wasn't suffering, and certainly we are seeing that now over and over in the world. There's always been suffering in the world. It seems to be intensified these days. And so if we're going to find contentment and happiness and to go with the flow of what this current set of challenges are, it will be indeed that we practice some of these steps in the path, including how we think. Something you'd like to add as we start this?
Well, a lot actually, but that I would say that in the Buddhist sutras or teachings, intention is extremely important. But he has three required intentions. The first one has an unappetizing name. It's called renunciation. But that actually is letting go. And you need to realize that we live in, and that the Buddha realized that we live in a dualistic world, which meant that for everything there is, there's an opposite. And you have to make a choice. And involved in making that choice is your intention. So you direct your own situation. In this case, you have negative and positive as opposites. And if you elect on the spiritual path to enlightenment, you take your frame into the positive, and you need to let go of the negatives. So that's what we're doing briefly with the first intention. The second of his teachings or intention was goodwill, unconditional goodwill, or friendliness, or love, depending on how you look at it, towards the entire world. Because although we're dualistic, we are all part of one universe. So there are two pieces that are opposites, but they are joined together like two sides of a coin, and it forms oneness. And the whole point of basically every spiritual path is to achieve oneness. For Christians, it's oneness with God. For Buddhists, it's oneness with the whole universe. You could transfer that to more of a cosmic energy. But it is a bringing together of the two halves without getting rid of either one of them. So the second one is goodwill. If you have ill will, you will suffer. Ill will is a negative. So, first one is to let go of all negatives, generalize. The second one is to get rid of ill will and expand your circle of compassion, as we spoke of in the quote last week. The third one is to do no harm. This is the same as the Hippocratic Oath. And it means to be nonviolent. And when we get to right action, we're going to talk ethics and morality and realize that the frame we're working in is the frame of social behavior. Human beings are social beings. And the more we act in antisocial ways, the more we suffer. So the second intention, I'm sorry, I'm taking too much time. Second of his intentions is goodwill. The first is to go with right thought to take you from the negative to the positive. So that's what the teachings say. And then beyond that, you have the whole spectrum of intention.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's very helpful. Ruthie
Okay.
has 30 times my experience.
Well, yeah, but
as far as number of years.
You have 30 times the memory. I don't have much memory anymore. But anyway,
Don't worry, mine will go too.
Yeah, it goes for all of us. It goes for all of us.
All right. So actually, I'm going to switch for a moment to really a clarity that I gained um, in therapy by coming to the Dharma by this, and Mark alluded to it. Ruthie now has alluded to it, and that there's a process of detachment. Oh, the road to happiness is found, and enlightenment is found by detaching from things that we cling and grasp and things that do us no good anymore. Maybe they did us no good the whole time, and yet we stick with them. There's a 3R process. This is my own. One, recognize. That's what Mark was talking about in observing.
Awareness.
Awareness.
Okay, right.
What you're trying to gain by looking at all the angles of whatever it is that is causing your suffering. That when you look at all the angles and observe that it sits in your hand. We've talked about this over and over again. So easy to talk about, so difficult to observe rather than join. To stand at the edge of the woods and look at the woods rather than be in the center of the woods entrapped. Part of the beauty of one of my favorite musicals, Into the Woods, where all the characters are trapped in the woods. And what they needed was to get detached from each other so that they could gain the understanding that they needed for their situation and find happiness. And some of them do, some of them don't, as it is in life as well. So when you recognize things, then you have the possibility of the second R, which is release.
I think there are a lot of people who really don't recognize that they're suffering.
They're so used to it.
They get so used to it, but they know things are wrong, so they come to the therapist or whatever for help finding out what's wrong, but they don't really recognize, they're not aware of the specifics because they haven't gone into that analysis.
Therapy is a lot, in the early stages of therapy, is a lot about recognizing, seeing your situation for exactly what it is and what's really going on with you. Yeah. That's confusing for all of us at times. Too much input.
And it's scary.
And it's scary to do that, isn't it?
Yeah, because you got to change.
You have to change, or if you don't want to change, you have to assume this, that your suffering will continue, and if you get some kind of sick pleasure out of that, then you will have that sick pleasure. But there's a lot of fear of the unknown. Where does this lead me? I know where I am. I know where I've been. I don't know where this leads me. And I think that's really true in the air now.
Don't you think that the root of all of this that you say with the change is fear? That before getting the awareness, then you get the awareness, and there's fear there.
And some people just take this first step and cling to the awareness, and then they go down the well of despair and depression and anxiety. And so this is only the first step.
I've got to say, this is a whole process.
It's a process. The first R is to recognize, observe. The second is to release, or give the possibility of release. There are some things that sit in our hand that will fly away on their own. If we leave them alone, they will take on their own life and they will fly away. If we cling, we will suffer. If any of you in the room have been through a divorce where you were the party that wanted to keep the marriage, you know that the bird has flown, but you're running after it with a net. I've done that as well. And it only causes more suffering. And so sometimes things fly away on their own, and acceptance is a piece of that journey. But then there are things that you have to blow away. You have to take some action and you have to remove it. Then there are other things that are meant to stay in your hand. All of this fits with. I have a background in divorce education. All of this fits with that process. If you have children, there's something that still sits in your hand despite the bird having flown. And what sits in your hand is a value, and it's meant to be there, and that is your relationship with your children. So all of these things about the potential of release are indeed the potential of the release of your way of holding on to things beyond their evolutionary cycle. Things change. One of the inevitabilities that Buddhism talks about, that nothing stays the same. We will not be the same tomorrow as we are today. When the borders closed March 15th, we are at a different spot in this country, different spot in other countries if you've seen this. So life evolves and it changes. The last one of the 3 R's is to replace. When you recognize and you allow the possibility of release, if you stay empty, generally something negative will pull it again. And so you have to replace that with compassion, with loving kindness, with a change of your perspective, with a much greater ability to let go of things as they come to you, a much greater ability to go with the flow of life as a stream happens to you. Just talking with a friend back from the United States in Minnesota yesterday, and she said that the isolation has been a gift.
It's been a gift by a few people, actually, if they look at it that way.
Mm-hmm. It's
Depends
about
on
perspective.
that takes you to your intention again.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that we mentioned happiness, and these 3 R's that you're talking about, and everything in Buddhism we say is directed towards our well-being. And when you talk about enlightenment, which is to become totally aware of the oneness of everything, it's liberation from suffering. We talked about dualism. What's the opposite of suffering? It's happiness. As the suffering recedes, the happiness fills that space. It's not giddy happiness like buying a new car. It's peace of mind, serenity, tranquility, fullness, full expansion. It's that kind of happiness. It's happiness that's
Being whole.
It's wholeness. It's the happiness of knowing finally who you really are, which is a child of God or a child of Buddha nature, but that you are part of this whole thing. So the happiness is the natural result of following this process and doing the studying and working at it. And it's not always easy, but it's not really that difficult. I mean, if you really get right down to it, we just don't want to change because it's a lot of work sometimes. But once you get into the work, it's pleasant. Well, mostly.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely.
You meet nicer people.
Well, you're a nicer person, so you attract nicer people.
That's right. Oh,
Interesting how that works.
That's just an aside that shouldn't have been there.
That's okay. We're a little spontaneous here sometimes.
Yeah, okay.
I want to make a statement that I want to make now, and I want to make at the end of the talk today. And that is, you can change your mind. You can change your intention. It is not fixed. It's entirely up to you. And it's entirely enhanced by the practices that you do. Not just the words, not just attending a Dharma session, but actually practicing the techniques of mindfulness, of compassion, of meditation, those practices will lead you through those 3 hours. You can change your mind, and even I worked in treatment settings, and people basically frazzled a lot of the connections in their brains with their alcohol and drug use. One of the most astounding things was, as I was working there, there was new studies that said if you stop that process, the connectors grow again. When I worked in an earlier counseling field, there was smoking cessation classes, and they brought in a lung in formaldehyde of someone who smoked for a lifetime, and it was disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
And then they brought in pictures of what happened if that person at any point in the time had stopped smoking. And surprisingly, unless you had done so much damage that there was no repair left, the lungs turn pink again. We're finding that out with the pandemic, that the atmosphere is repairing itself.
In Los Angeles, they can see the mountains. They haven't been able to see them for years.
Yeah, and they've been watching the ozone layer, and they've been watching the climate, and all of a sudden, when we finally live within nature, as forced, not by choice but by force, interestingly, things repair themselves. And so that natural process of changing your mind is indeed about recognizing and releasing and replacing. But you can do this. I have done this.
I've done it. Everyone here has done it.
You've all
And if
done
we
this.
can do it, anybody
Change
can
your
do
mind.
it. Yeah, you have to change your direction.
Right.
And that's intention. I keep coming back to the same thing. Where you place your mind is the direction of your life. And so if you form a clear intention of where you want to be on the spiritual path or not, or whatever it is, that's the direction in which everything is going to move. And so intention really precedes
Action.
action.
Our thoughts are the forerunner. There's my next point. So you're right with me.
Yep.
Thoughts are the forerunners of our actions. And thoughts and actions are what lead us to karmic cause and effect. If you think differently, if you've struggled and suffered in your thinking, it will lead to different kind of actions on your part, will lead to different rewards.
Yeah.
Rewards rather than the consequences of suffering. So those are all really great things. And there's a Zen man from Vietnam, Thich Nhat Hanh, and he said that there are 4 practices of right intention that you can practice. Maybe some of you who are watching this, some of us here, this will mean something. 1, if you're going to practice having a right intention, you should regularly ask yourself, am I sure? Am I certain?
And you have to be willing if you say, oh, I think I did that. That wasn't really what I should have done. To change right then and there.
Absolutely.
To be able to change direction right at that point. Don't say, oh, I started that way, so I just keep on going.
I have to.
Yeah, you don't have to, because you can change right then when you know that you've done something that there's a misstep. You can turn around and take that step back.
You have to embrace uncertainty. That are you sure? And if your answer is you are, then you should let that sit with you. That is what it is. That's the answer. And yet, if you're not sure, then it's important to do the process of those 3 hours. The second question.
I think you do them to be sure.
To gain confidence.
To gain the confidence, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Second one, ask yourself, what am I doing? What am I doing? So not only what am I thinking, but what am I doing? How do my actions show where my intent is? I think we all know people who have good intents and we see their actions and we admire them. We want to be with them. We want to be close to them. We want to be influenced by them. And then we see people who do not have that karma, that energy coming from them.
Yeah, negative intention.
And then you have to ask yourself, what am I doing? My influence. What am I doing about that? If that's a negative influence, what will I do? This is in counseling, they call this boundary.
Mm-hmm. Well, you talk about listening. So you stop and you think, who am I listening to? Who's influencing me? Are they positive or are they negative? Are they enhancing my life or are they detracting from? So again, you've got the 3 R's going with the intention to clarify your own life and stay on your own path.
Right.
Unless that's the path you want to go. I mean, maybe you don't want to be a nice person.
In treatment, they say a very funny phrase. They're like, mind your own bobber.
That's the thing that goes up and down when you fish?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Mind your own bobber. It's none of your business. I skipped the swear word. It's none of your business. Somebody else's bobber.
Yeah.
They're in charge of their bobber, let it be. And then Al-Anon teaches the exact same thing. Grant me the serenity to accept the people I cannot change. Courage to change the person I can, and the wisdom to know that it's me.
And you don't have to try to change them. You just move away from them if you find that they are not in the same direction. You just don't have to let them influence you anymore.
So there's the question. First 2 questions. Am I sure? Great question of observation where you are. That's and what that means. Right? Yes. And the second one is, what am I doing?
What am I doing? Okay.
Third, recognize how your habit energies go. Where your regular routines lead you. Do they lead you towards enlightenment, or do they regularly lead you away from happiness, enlightenment, peace? If your energies, if you have a lot of family energy that has always led you down negative cycles, you can change your mind. You can change your habits. And so to recognize which directions your habit energies are going. And it's not just forward and backward. Many times our habit energies are just detours that we take so we don't actually have to face life. It's not just forward or backward, it's all the side steps that happen. Our habits, to observe them, to recognize them, gives you the ability to figure out if you need to change them. Mental health, the number one indicator of a better mental health is exercise. Oh dear. That if you feel depressed, exercise should be a portion of the pie of your recovery. And so interestingly, to recognize that those habit energies that you can fix yourself.
Well, now Lisa works with people who can't do full yoga, right? You work with handicapped people or people, with disabilities, and she's going to do a class pretty soon.
Something like that.
And so, that kind of fits in with that.
Absolutely. The fourth one, I'm going to skip the word that he did because of Bodhicitta. Bodhicitta. See, I knew it was wrong, but I'm willing to cultivate bodhicitta, which means an enlightened mind which strives toward empathy and compassion. That you can cultivate that mind so that it becomes less of a challenge. It becomes more natural.
That's what fills in.
That's to replace.
That's the replacement. Loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and at all times equanimity.
Balance.
And all of these things you've mentioned are really quite balanced.
They are. Mm-hmm. And to be honest with you, life throws us off the balance beam. And therefore, we need to get back up and do the practices that will Olympic athlete in gymnastics.
That's good.
Thank you. The lady in my generation was Nadia Comaneci. She never fell off that beam.
She was wonderful.
Those of you that are younger watching this, you won't have any clue who that is.
Oh, I know.
But it was shocking. It was shocking what she was the first person to do all those flips and just land on her feet.
Yeah.
She had done the practices that led her to perfect balance, even amid pressure. There's an example for us of what changing your mind, changing your habits, believing that, and going with the flow, recognizing, releasing. That'll take you.
Can I add one thing?
You can, and then I'm going to say my phrase, and then I think that I'm done.
We'll do it. You know, we hear the expression drinking the Kool-Aid, and we talk about recognizing that you're suffering. And when you get to this point of intention and right thought, and you say, man, am I drinking my own Kool-Aid, you know, or somebody else's Kool-Aid? Right. And the Buddha points out 3 specifics for that. And the first one, and if you are guiding your life by any of these 3, or you have a problem with any of these 3, you've got your work cut out for you. It can be done, but you're going to have to really be honest with yourself. The first of the 3 poisons is greed. Okay? If you're a greedy person, you are not practicing either compassion or loving kindness. You're not practicing sympathetic joy, and you're going to be constantly off balance because too much is never enough. The second one, which starts with an H, which I have to think of. So it's greed. I wrote it down. What did I do with my paper?
I'm going to say something about greed.
I put it right here because I always forget things. I have very poor memory.
There it's on the side with the
Greed, hatred.
There you
I
go.
got it.
Okay, I won't show the
Hatred, which I remembered it. I'm really slow.
I got him here now.
Gotta be, yeah.
You're good.
Yeah, and the hatred. If you have ill will, which is the opposite side of the coin of goodwill, you are going to deal with literally being toxic yourself. That is a true poison in your immune system, in your relationships, in your work, in everything in life. So if you find yourself, even with a whole lot of aversion, not quite hatred, but that's the second poison that you might be drinking. And the third one, he just listed as ignorance, but really it is willful ignorance. Real ignorance, when somebody just doesn't know something, is pretty forgivable. They can be educated. But the person who knows and is willfully ignorant about the effects of greed or hatred, these things, that person has got a lot of work to do because they are really, so those are the poisons that go with the intentions. If you're going to get on the spiritual path and you say, okay, I don't want to suffer, I want to be enlightened, I'm going to have set good intentions. What do I have to look out for? That's real.
And the dilemma is, no, I need it.
Do you want it? Okay.
You gave it to me. I'm keeping it for a moment.
Well, I'm surprised you can even read my handwriting.
I can read it.
We don't need to do
it's so interesting that we can see greed in other people.
Mm-hmm.
We can see hatred in other people. We can see ignorance according to our perspective of them.
Mm-hmm.
But the real questions are, where is my greed? Where am I holding on to things and I don't share? Because that, developmentally, is the 3 to 5 year old stage.
Mm-hmm.
Me, my, mine, everything is mine, nothing is yours. So if you want to be a 3 to 5 year old, no matter what your age is, you will practice this. And many, many people never move past that. And so the question is, how am I greedy? And in what ways do I need to change my mind, which will follow with my actions, which will give me different karma in the world? This is radical stuff. This is radical stuff that we actually don't own anything. That's a tough one, especially in my background. I work hard and I own a bunch of stuff and it's mine. It's not yours. Sure sounds like a 4-year-old to me. And so how am I greedy? Where is there hatred in me? Many, many people struggle with grudges. Someone has done them wrong, and therefore they take the poison pill of the Kool-Aid that this is an evil person, and I not only dislike them or what they did.
Kindergarten.
Yeah.
You
So
can go way back.
yeah. Hatred is just like the playground in elementary school. So again, we're looking at pretty immature kind of things, but there we stall in our habits. And then finally, in what ways are where I am currently unknowledgeable? Which ways do I willfully choose my ignorance? Yeah. And those things, and then
I know I shouldn't eat that Twinkie.
Ruthie's getting hungry now. Now it'll be food illustration.
But
now you may have it back.
Because I got my sentences on here.
So I think our idea today in the second noble truth, and then I think we have like 5 minutes that we can ask anybody if they'd like to add to this.
Hop in there.
Yeah. Is that I want to say this again. You can change your mind. Anything that are not on the healthy, holistic intentions and thoughts, you can alter. You take some of these practices. I know people that have been struggles for me when I recognize what it is, when I release myself from those feelings. Buddhism has taught me that now I need to replace that as send loving kindness to them. It's not very different than Jesus and the Sermon on the Mount.
Very similar.
Same thing.
Same thing.
Same thing as Martin Luther King Jr., Gandhi, all kinds of spiritual leaders along the way. And so when you replace it with loving kindness, you've completed the circle and you are free. You are free. You are not stuck. You're moving towards enlightenment. You can change your life.
Change your mind, change your life.
Yes. Anybody else want to add anything? Lisa?
I was going to say
Speak up, Lisa.
that you can change your mind about yourself as well.
Yeah,
not just the outer things. But I think that's a significant one because it's sometimes easier to forgive somebody else or to understand their behavior, but when you turn it inwards, it can be harder. So
that must be something you've done.
It's a lifelong process, I think. We do things that suddenly we are aware that we don't like, and then you have to decide that you're still okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah, forgiveness is part of this whole process.
Beautiful to be allow yourself to be human.
That's part of the letting go of the negativity.
Don't turn
the gun on yourself.
Really, I think we all want to be perfect and see ourselves as perfect, and when we turn that reflection inward and see the imperfections, unless we keep going through the process you're saying, you could get stuck in that not liking yourself too much. So keeping going through and finding that same compassion and loving kindness for yourself will help you get through and then hopefully not stick as much with future things. You can let it go more quickly.
Wave your hand.
Thank you.
But I can say something.
Okay, say something.
One of the things that we notice with this changing of the mind or the changing is it's like walking over broken stones. You're walking on a broken ground and it's uncomfortable, and that perpetuates the discomfort that you're having. But all of a sudden, you start walking on a path that is clean and smooth. And even though you may still have the sensation of walking over the broken stones in your foot on the new path, it dissipates. And it suddenly becomes this new path or new pattern where you feel more comfortable, you feel inspired, supported, and you have clarity. And the concept of walking back over those broken stones is just not acceptable anymore.
We know this, especially in Costa Rica, right? A paved road, and even some of the paved roads are like broken stumps.
Yeah.
Or a mountain road.
Yeah.
When I come down the mountain road, I am so happy when I get to the paved road in Baru.
Yeah.
And I really don't want to go back on that mountain road.
But even noticing how that affects your thought processes, it affects you physically, and how it affects the world around you, and that anticipation of getting to that road, that's part of the change process. It's the recognition that I'm making a change, I'm looking for something. How do I feel about it right now?
It's a vision.
Yeah.
And what you do a lot of work with vision.
A lot of, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, what you're doing is empowering yourself. And next week we want to start going into the Eightfold Path is divided in 3 sections. And this is the first section, which is right view, your perspective, and right intention, which is the beginning of where you go. The second is ethics and morality. It's called right action. It's behavior. It's the recognition that we are social creatures and we cause so much suffering when we behave in antisocial ways. So all of the precepts are geared as a social contract. And we'll talk about that next week, along with the fact of how empowering it is to do what Jeff is talking about, what everybody here is talking about. It is empowering to change your mind and be relieved. It's like if there is a liberation, there's a genuine sense of liberation there. When I say liberation from suffering, it's a genuine sense of liberation. And you also, another thing we want to talk about, remind me next week in case I forget. I've had so many people take the attitude that kindness, compassion, love, these things are weaknesses. And I'd like to talk about that because it's empowering. Someone brought it up to me because I said last week, again, I repeat it often, love is the truth at the heart of creation. Yeah, you and, John Lennon and, Imagine all
And
this
the
goody
hippies.
stuff. We'll talk about that later. But anyway, I want to talk about the empowering aspect of walking on this path and taking the pieces and, getting where you're going. So now we've got time for
You can change your mind.
you can change your mind. Absolutely. The choice is yours. And don't be afraid. So now should we do a closing meditation?
Let's do that, please.
Okay, let's do a loving kindness meditation, but I'm going to shorten it just to the final section, which is for the whole of humanity, not just for ourselves, people we love, the neutral people, the people in conflict. We normally do that. But now, the very final one is you widen the circle of compassion and loving kindness. You expand rather than contract. You finally get to this sense of wholeness, and it's contained in the 5th person or person spoken to in loving kindness meditation. So please get centered and silent for a moment. Breathe as Mark taught us. Take a deep breath in through your nose. Let it just flow out through your mouth. Your mouth can be partially open, but breathe in only through the nose. And repeat, either if you're online and you want to say it out loud, you can do it, but here We'll just say it to ourselves. Please bring to mind 8 billion people and a whole world of worlds out there of which we know nothing, but maybe people, or at least have some form of life. So our wishes, our goodwill, our unconditional friendliness is extended at this point out to all. And we say, may all beings everywhere on this plane and all other planes be well. May all beings everywhere be safe. May all beings everywhere be free from suffering. May all beings everywhere be happy. And now another deep breath, and I'll close with these words, which actually come from the Unitarian Church. Go in peace, go making peace, living gently, loving mightily, and bowing to mysteries. Thank you all very much. If we had a chime, we'd chime it for us. Ding. There we go. See you next week. We love you.